Well, hi folks, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel. Now, if you've been following things for a little while now, you'll know there are big changes afoot here at OCC HQ. I've got a big plan to cut back a little bit, consolidate and buy something as a replacement. Once 2 or 3 of the cars here have gone to new homes. Pilot's gone, Standard has gone. The Renault, that will go at some point, but I can imagine that'll probably take a little bit longer to go because it is quite a niche little car, very, very niche, unusual car. Not everyone really gets these funny little rear engine cars, so that might take a little bit longer, but I'm confident a good home for that will turn up fairly soon. But the main subject of this video is the fact that there is a new arrival here at OCC HQ, and in this video I will reveal all, and I will follow this video up a little bit later with a proper in-depth walk around look at the car that we have ended up choosing to replace these 3. But for now I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the contenders and some of the ideas that you guys, the people watching these videos, have come up with lately. Suggestions, classic car ideas, things that I maybe should consider replacing these 3 with. And there's been some really constructive comments based on the previous videos that I put up about this process, and there have been some very interesting suggestions. I mentioned Mark 1 and possibly Mark 2 Jaguars as well, and quite a few of you seemed keen on that idea and thought that was probably quite a good choice of car, and I would have to agree. The only downside with the Mark 1 idea, when I was actually looking around, there are cars that are available on budget, which of course is the key thing. That's quite an important consideration. There are cars that are on budget and there are cars that are way above budget. The risk with the cars that are on budget is it is the lower end of the Mark 1 market, and the Mark 1s and indeed Mark 2s, any car like that which is fairly complicated, there's quite a lot going on engine wise with those. It's one of those sort of cars where you kind of want to buy, unless you're on a project, which I don't, it's one of those kind of cars that you want to buy a good one. I think it's that sort of thing, because the restoration costs on the Mark 1 or Mark 2 can be pretty astronomical, especially when you get into interior and bodywork, paint especially. It's almost kind of worth buying a car where it's already gone through that process. Someone else has already shelled out to have the restoration work done, and I think buy the best you can certainly applies in that case. If you're buying something maybe like a Morris Minor, something where the mechanical side is fairly straightforward and parts are available for the bodywork and then all bolt-on wings as well, which makes life a lot easier, then yeah, maybe a bit more of a project end of the market is not a bad place to go at all, and then do the work yourself and improve it over time. But I think when you're looking at fairly complicated cars and expensive cars to restore, the old adage of buy the best you can afford really comes into play. And at my budget at the moment, with the sale of these 3, it was always going to be towards the lower end of the Mark 1 Jaguar market, and that probably isn't really somewhere I should be thinking about going. So it's not a Jaguar Mark 1 or Mark 2. In fact, it's not a Jaguar at all. Other suggestions have been from viewers to the channel and the videos I put up in the last week or so. Rover P4, good choice, good solid dependable cars. I especially like the 6-cylinder cars. They are really nice indeed. Nothing to say bad about those really, and whenever I see them I'm always really impressed, especially the interiors. They look really very agreeable places to spend time behind the wheel of. So yeah, I like P4s, but it's not a P4 or indeed a Rover. What else has been suggested? We've had MG Magnets. In fact, I suggested MG Magnets and quite a few of you have commented saying, oh yeah, MG Magnets, great cars. And of course they're sort of mid-50s, late 50s, that kind of age. And in the previous video I talked a little bit about, because with the V8 Pilot going, that's a bit of a funny one, because that was 1950, the build date, but the car was pretty much a pre-war car, just sort of modified a little bit for the UK market and built here for just 4 years. And I had a long sort of debate in my head about whether to go newer or older than the Pilot, so later than 50 or earlier than 1950. And it was a bit of a funny one, because you go later than 50 and arguably the cars might be a little bit more usable, but based on what I was seeing in terms of the cars that were for sale within budget, the cars that interested me most tended to be pre-1950, and that has kind of been the way that I've been looking over the last few weeks. And it won't surprise you to hear that I have actually gone pre-war, back to a pre-war car again here at OCCHQ, and that's not something I've been able to say for a little while, ever since the Dodge car went to the 1924 Dodge Tourer. That one left us two and a half, something like that, years ago. I've not checked, but it's a couple of years back there or thereabouts. That was a car I ran for 10 years, fantastic, proper vintage car from the early 1920s, and that was a joy to drive. So different. Every journey was an experience, and that is kind of the sort of thing, the feeling that I want to get with the replacement that I've chosen, and in fact was delivered just a couple of days ago. Now what I ended up going for falls into two camps, two niches that everyone says is pretty flat at the moment, pre-war cars being one of them. Turn the telly on, put on a classic car programme, and you'll see certain people saying, oh, classic cars, pre-war cars, no one wants them, the market's dead, everyone's dead that used to like these kind of things, and no one who is into old cars now likes pre-war cars. But I would counter that and say, well, that's not always the case. Not everyone buys a classic car just because they have a nostalgic link to them. Yes, people buy cars that maybe an old family car, it was your dad's car when you were a child, something like that, and I fully understand that, but it's not the case in every situation. And I mean, I don't think I've actually bought a car really that's had a link to old family cars. I've had Volvo Amazons, and Dad had an Amazon in the 70s, but yeah, I suppose that was the closest I've really got to that. But yeah, pre-war cars, listen to anyone, they'll say, oh, no one wants them. And as a result of that, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that values are just a little bit quiet at the moment on the pre-war car side of things. And indeed, most classic cars, the market is a little bit flat. There are exceptions, as with anything. But pre-war cars, apart from certain cars, even Austin 7s, you know, Chummies used to be £15,000-20,000, but now they are available for a fair bit less than that. It struck me that, well, this is probably a good time to actually think about buying a pre-war car, because with the market being fairly flat, as it were, that's a good time to be a buyer. Might not be a great time to be a seller. I might regret this in a few years' time, but for now, the idea of buying a pre-war car, it's not been this good, the market for a buyer, for quite some time. So I felt like this was probably a good time to get back into the pre-war car ownership. And another niche within the old car market, the classic car market, which tends to offer a lot for the money, is American cars. Now, I've been around old cars for quite a long time. Like I said, we had the 20s Dodge, and I've got the two Dodge pickups, or the pickup and the big truck here. And yeah, I've always had a bit of an interest in the American stuff. And it's true to say there are some fantastic bargains out there. Just to sort of quantify this a little bit, my main interest when it comes to American cars is 1920s through to probably the late 1940s, that kind of era, when up to about 51, 52, that kind of thing. When things started getting really flash and showy from sort of the mid-50s onwards, and then the fins and everything, it's not really my kind of thing. I get why people like them, I do, because they are incredible things, but it's not really me, it's not really my cup of tea. But the sort of 20s, 30s, into the 40s, that seems like the sweet spot for me when it comes to American classic cars. And what I have noticed is that, I mean, if I look back again to that 24 Dodge that we had, it was a 4-seat, 4-door Tourer, quite a big, imposing, quite an impressive looking car, I always thought. 3.5 litre engine. If I was to buy a car of equivalent age and spec of that was like a British built car, you'd probably end up doubling your budget to get a comparable car with the same sort of engine size, spec, the space, and the overall presence. You know, you'd spend probably a fair bit more if you were buying British or even European cars, and that's still the case now. So yeah, having an affinity and interest in some of the early American cars and an interest in early pre-war cars, that has kind of steered my decision making a little bit. Other cars that were suggested were Riley's. I suggested Riley's pre-war, and many of you have suggested the post-war Riley RM. That's a fantastic car. Dad had a couple of those actually back in the 1960s, so that would have been a very popular choice indeed here in the Jones household. I'm sure he would have liked that one a great deal. But no, the car we have gone for is pre-war, not quite vintage, but pre-war and American, and it's quite an eye-catching car. I know a lot of you are sorry to see the V8 Pilot go, because that was quite an impressive looking car as well, and trust me, I thought that car looked sensational. That was basically a mid-1930s, I think it's a Ford Model 62, I might have got that wrong, but I think it's the Model 62 about 1935-36. That was the car that Ford of England used as the basis for the V8 Pilot, and they put a sort of an anglicised front on it to make it look a little bit more British and appealing to British eyes, but that was basically an American car of the mid-1930s. So it's kind of, what we've chosen is actually continuing that theme kind of, but this is an American car. Well, I say American car. It is an American car, everything was made in America, but this is actually a Canadian built car, but from kits of parts supplied from the US of A up into Canada. The running gear, engine, chassis, the body, everything up to Canada, and it was assembled there, and that just gives it a bit of extra interest as well. It's still left-hand drive, which is quite an exciting. I quite like left-hand drive cars, being right-handed, being able to change gear with my right hand. I don't mind that at all. So yeah, this is just maybe giving you a few little ideas of things to think about. I've talked about Ford Model A's in the past, and you'll know I'm quite a big fan of those. I did have the Model AA truck from 1930 until just a few years ago, so that was another example of an American vehicle which offered an awful lot of bang for buck, literally. So yeah, that era, that type of vehicle, the car or indeed trucks, they've always really appealed. Now, if you watch some of the previous videos I've done on this subject, you'll know that I did have a few bits of criteria in mind when choosing this car. One, it has to have a modicum of practicality, and when I mean practicality I mean space inside. Seating for 3 or 4 people, that's always quite useful, because that way we can all go out together, and this hobby is it's a family thing. It's not just me, or it's not just me and Harley, it's a family thing, and the idea to be, being able to carry more than just ourselves in it is a bit of a bonus. Needs a bit of carrying capacity as well, and I want something that is capable of rolling along quite happily and taking to a few shows that we get to, not necessarily 100, 200 miles away, but just sort of, because even within a radius of 20, 25 miles of here, there are a lot of events that potentially we could take it to. So it had to be kind of usable, kind of reasonably long-legged. I do tend to, even though we've got the little Renault there, I do tend to like larger engine cars just because they're working that much less hard. Fuel economy is not often a great thing about larger engine old cars, but when you're using the car so frequently, does it really matter that much what the economy is? Not really. Petrol's the only thing I spend money on anyway, so it doesn't really matter as long as it's not crucifyingly bad, as long as we're not in single digits MPG. Things are usually reasonable in that respect, and I'm not too worried about fuel economy, that kind of thing, but it's got to be fairly usable, and you've got to be able to buy the parts for it. And I come back to Model A's again, that they're a really good choice if you want a largish engine vintage car, and you've got a huge choice of different types of body on those as well. Tourers, 2 and 4 door saloons, vans, and the pickups even. And I was tempted with a Model A pickup, I must admit, but that was too close to the Dodge pickup, so that one got scrubbed off the list fairly quickly. But I haven't gone for a Ford Model A, so I've ignored my own advice, and I've ignored that completely, in fact. The car that we have actually gone for has pretty good spare support, not so much here in the UK, but over in the States these cars are pretty well supported. There's a lot of information and advice around, and there are suppliers of spare parts. This particular car has seen a lot of recommissioning work, so I'm hoping not to need too many spare parts, at least for a little while. But if I get stuck, there are people out there who I can get in touch with and order these parts from. So that kind of thing is covered. It's not quite as convenient or as cheap perhaps as being able to find the parts over here, but I'm hoping not to need too many of them. But yeah, parts suppliers have been identified, and that side of thing is also ticked off. And lastly, it's got to be something that I'm getting excited about. Now, this is a very, very subjective thing, the classic car world. Something that the viewers of this video might like, I might not be that interested in, and vice versa. There'll be lots of people looking at this video now and thinking, oh, he's gone pre-war, oh, American, yeah, I don't like that. Well, I fully understand that. I don't expect everyone to like this car, but the whole point of this YouTube channel was to follow our family journey in and around old cars and the stuff that we like and we run. Now, I know there's a temptation in the automotive YouTube world to buy cars for clicks to get the views, but I've never really subscribed to that, because A, if I'm not interested in the car, I'm not going to spend any time on it, or I'm not going to want to do any work or fettling or fixing things on it, because it's just not going to float my boat. If it doesn't really interest me that much, then there's no real point buying it. And if I was going for clicks on here on YouTube, I would probably buy something from the 1980s, maybe a hot hatch or something like that, and there's nothing wrong with that, that's great, but it's just not me. It's not really my kind of thing. There are a few 80s cars that I wouldn't mind owning, which I've discussed before, but overall it's the older stuff, and old stuff, pre-war stuff, is quite niche, and not that many people in the old car world are that keen on pre-war cars. There are loads of people, but the real growth area at the moment seems to be 80s and 90s cars, 2000s cars even. Certainly if you look at the spread of cars that turn up at the shows we get to, the shift does definitely seem to be towards later cars, and I guess things that people remember when they grew up. Nostalgia is a big player in all of this, but not solely, and like I said, I don't really subscribe to the nostalgia thing. I just buy things that I am interested in, and if I can buy something, then I will, and that's kind of the driver for this. This isn't driven by clicks or trying to get views. This is driven by things we like, and by doing these videos we sort of take you along for the journey, and if you like it, great. If you don't, well, I understand that, because you can't please everyone all of the time, and not everyone who watches this video now, much as I appreciate it, not everyone's going to really like what we've bought. Some people might do, a lot of people won't, but I get that. I don't mind, that is fine. Let me know in the comments what you think, but like I say, we buy things that we like, and if you guys like it, well, that's great, and keep watching. And if it's not your cup of tea, well, that's fine. We've all got our own individual favourite things and so on. Anyway, I think now is the time to go and have a look at the car that we've bought to replace the Pilot, the Standard, and eventually the little 4CV. Right, it is just starting to rain, so I'm going to keep this brief, but here we go. This is a pre-war Buick powered by a straight 8 engine of approximately 5.7 litres, and as soon as I saw this thing advertised, I thought, wow, what a fantastic looking car. Up for sale for similar money to maybe a Model A, that kind of thing. Some were cheaper at Model A's and there was some more expensive, but this just really caught my eye. I've always loved the Ford Model A Coupe, the Coupe, and this is sort of a longer version of that, with seating in the back for an extra 3 people, so you can squeeze 5 people in here. And I just think this is a sensational looking car. Like I say, as soon as I saw this advertised, I just thought, wowzers, what a great looking car. And yeah, yes, it is just starting to rain. The clouds are just rolling in, so I'm going to keep this short, but yes, that is the car that we have bought to replace the other 3. And yeah, I just think it is a stunning looking car. A few little jobs to do, as always with an old car. There's a bit of fettling to do. It's been off the road apparently for about 50 years on and off, and it came over here in 2016 and has had quite a lot of recommissioning work done to it, but not a great deal of use. So there's still a few little jobs to do. It runs a bit rich, so there are things to do on it, but overall it's just a sensational car. But anyway, that is the reveal of the new old car here at OCC HQ. The rain is just starting to fall now. You can probably just see it here and there. I'll just have a quick look inside. So it's a 2-door coupe. Old rag, don't need that. But yeah, 2-door coupe with seating for 5. But yeah, I will have a proper look, and I'll do a proper walk around video of this one afterwards, but this really is just to reveal the car, the newest arrival here at OCC HQ. And yes, it is starting to rain now, so I'm going to wind this one up. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what you think of this old girl. Is this a suitable replacement for the V8 Pilot and the other two? Well, who knows? I think it is. I love it. I think it is absolutely sensational looking car. But yeah, like I say, we're all different and we all like different things. So thank you so much for watching this one. Please give it a like, leave a comment, and if you've not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Anyway, there'll be loads more videos along very, very soon, so I'm going to get this back undercover before it starts raining properly. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.